The cabinet door hung crooked again. Third time this month. I pressed my palm against the cherry wood, feeling for the loose hinge that had been bothering me for weeks. Everything in this house was falling apart, including my marriage. The irony wasn't lost on me. I built custom furniture for half the wealthy families in Millbrook Harbor, but I couldn't keep my own kitchen cabinets straight. Ethan. Claire's voice cut through the quiet evening like a blade. Sharp, cold, final. I didn't turn around. 20 years of marriage teaches you to read tone, and this one spelled trouble. Big trouble. I kept my focus on the hinge, tightening the screws with methodical precision. At least this I could fix. Ethan, look at me. The legal papers hit the granite countertop with a slap that echoed through our pristine kitchen. Divorce papers. The words irreconcilable differences jumped out at me in bold legal font. You have 48 hours to pack your things and get out. Claire stood there in her designer real estate blazer, arms crossed, looking like she was about to close the deal of the century, which, I suppose, she was. I finally turned to face my wife. She'd gotten her hair done, new highlights, expensive cut, the kind of styling you get when you're trying to impress someone who wasn't me. 48 hours? I kept my voice level, controlled. Inside, my chest felt like someone had reached in and squeezed my heart with a vice. That's generous. Most eviction notices give 30 days. This isn't an eviction, Ethan. This is a divorce. And since Ryan owns this house now, you're trespassing. Ryan. Of course it was Ryan. As if summoned by his name, Ryan Foster strolled into my kitchen like he owned the place, which, apparently, he thought he did. Designer jeans, Italian leather shoes, and that smug smile that made me want to introduce his perfect teeth to my fist. Hey there, pal. Ryan tossed a box of garbage bags onto the counter next to the divorce papers. Don't leave a mess when you go. I'm particular about keeping things clean. I looked at the garbage bags, then at Ryan, then at my wife. Claire couldn't meet my eyes. 20 years of marriage, and she couldn't even look at me while she twisted the knife. Ryan owns the house now? I asked, genuinely curious. That's interesting. When did you buy it, Ryan? Last week. Got it for a steal. His grin widened. Claire handled the paperwork. She's very thorough, very thorough. Right. I'd built this house with my own hands 15 years ago, every beam and board carefully selected and placed. The deed was in my name, inherited from my father along with the land, but I didn't mention that. Not yet. Well, I said, forcing a smile that felt like broken glass, I guess congratulations are in order. To both of you. Claire finally looked at me, and for just a moment, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Guilt? Regret? It was gone so fast I might have imagined it. Don't make this harder than it has to be, she said. We can do this civilly. Civilly. After she'd been sleeping with Ryan Foster for God knows how long, after she'd forged documents to steal my house, after she'd made me the laughingstock of Millbrook Harbor's gossip mill, she wanted to do this civilly. Of course, I said. Civil is my middle name. Ryan laughed, a harsh sound that grated against my nerves. Good man. I was worried this might get ugly. I looked at him, really looked at him. Ryan Foster, property developer, new money flash, the kind of guy who wore his wealth like a weapon. He'd made his fortune buying up waterfront properties and turning them into overpriced condos for city folks looking for a weekend escape. The locals hated him, but his money talked loud enough to drown out their complaints. No, I said quietly. Nothing ugly about it. Just a simple business transaction, right? Exactly. Ryan clapped me on the shoulder like we were old friends. I'm glad you're being reasonable about this. Reasonable. Sure. I was being very reasonable. After they left, Claire to her office for some late evening work, Ryan to his penthouse apartment downtown, I stood alone in my kitchen, looking at the divorce papers and the box of garbage bags. The house felt different now, like the walls themselves knew what was coming. I walked through the rooms slowly, taking inventory. The living room with its hand-built entertainment center and custom shelving. The dining room with the table I'd crafted from a single piece of walnut. The master bedroom where Claire and I had slept for 15 years, where we'd planned our future and shared our dreams. All of it about to belong to Ryan Foster. I climbed the stairs to my office, the one room Claire never entered. She said it was too cluttered, too masculine, too much like a workshop. She was right on all counts. This was where I kept my real business. The contracts, the client files, the financial records that showed just how successful Marsh Custom Furniture had become. I opened the locked filing cabinet and pulled out a manila folder marked Property Records Marsh Residence. Inside was the original deed, the one my father had signed over to me when I turned 25. The one that clearly stated the property belonged to Ethan James Marsh and his heirs in perpetuity. I smiled for the first time in hours, a real smile this time. Ryan Foster thought he owned my house. Claire thought she'd outmaneuvered me with forged documents and legal maneuvering. They both thought I was just some small-town carpenter who'd roll over and play dead when the big city developer came calling. They were about to learn that you should never play chess with a man who built the board. The next morning came too early and too bright. I'd spent most of the night in my workshop behind the house, making lists and phone calls. By sunrise, I had a plan. It wasn't pretty, but it was thorough. My first call was to Marty Sullivan, my best friend since high school, and the only ex-cop I trusted completely. Marty ran a small security business now, installing cameras and alarm systems for Millbrook Harbor's paranoid wealthy residents. He also had a talent for making problems disappear quietly and legally. "You sound like hell," Marty said when he answered on the second ring. "Feel worse? Can you meet me at the house? I need your expertise. The kind that requires paperwork or the kind that doesn't? The completely legal kind. Mostly." Marty chuckled. "Give me 20 minutes. While I waited, I walked through the house again, this time with a different purpose. Everything I'd built, everything I'd installed, everything that belonged to me was coming out. The custom cabinets could stay. They were built into the walls. But the appliances I'd bought, the fixtures I'd selected, the artwork I'd collected over 20 years of marriage, all of it was leaving with me. Mrs. DeWitt was watering her roses when Marty pulled up in his van. Our neighbor had lived next door for 30 years and knew everyone's business before they knew it themselves. She gave us a wave and a knowing look. By noon, half the town would know that Ethan Marsh was moving out. "So," Marty said, climbing out of his van with a tool kit and a grim expression. Claire finally pulled the trigger. "Yesterday. Gave me 48 hours to pack and get out. And the new boyfriend? Ryan Foster, says he owns the house now." Marty whistled low. "Foster's bad news, Ethan. He's got connections, money, and a reputation for playing dirty. Good thing I'm not playing by his rules." We spent the next 3 hours systematically removing everything that belonged to me. The 60-inch television I'd bought for our anniversary. The sound system I'd installed in the living room. The washer and dryer from the laundry room. The riding mower and workshop tools from the garage. "What about the security system?" Marty asked as we loaded the last of my power tools into his van. I smiled. "What about it? You installed it yourself, right? Custom job? Every sensor, every camera, every control panel, all registered under my name with the monitoring company. And Foster doesn't know this. Foster doesn't know a lot of things." Marty grinned. "I love it when a plan comes together. What else you got?" I pulled out my phone and showed him the folder of documents I'd photographed the night before. Property records, tax assessments, utility bills, mortgage papers, all in my name, all legally binding, all proving that Ryan Foster had about as much claim to my house as he did to the moon. "Claire forged your signature on a deed transfer?" Marty shook his head. "That's not just divorce court, Ethan. That's fraud." "I know, but I'm not calling the police. Not yet." "Why not?" Because I want them to dig the hole deeper first. Let them move in, let them get comfortable, let them think they've won. Then I'll bury them in it. We drove to the Blue Lantern, Millbrook Harbor's premier restaurant and gossip central. If you wanted to know who was sleeping with whom, who was going bankrupt, or who was about to get arrested, the Blue Lantern's bar was better than the local newspaper. Sarah Martinez, the bartender, greeted us with a sympathetic smile. "Heard about you and Claire." "Sorry, honey. News travels fast." "Mrs. DeWitt was in an hour ago. She saw the moving van." Sarah poured me a beer without being asked. "Said Claire's been bringing that Foster guy around for weeks. Even saw them through your bedroom window." I took a long drink of beer and let that sink in. Weeks. Maybe months. While I was working 16-hour days to build the business, Claire was entertaining her boyfriend in our bed. "What else is Mrs. DeWitt saying?" Sarah leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Says Foster's been bragging around town that he's going to tear down your house and build condos. Says the waterfront lot is worth more than the building." My blood went cold. Tear down my house? The house I'd built with my own hands? The house my father had left me? The house where I'd planned to grow old? "He can't do that," Marty said. "It's a historic property. There are zoning restrictions." "Foster's got friends on the planning commission," Sarah said. "Money talks, especially his money." I finished my beer and stood up. The plan was changing, getting bigger, getting more personal. This wasn't just about divorce anymore. This was about everything I'd worked for, everything I'd built, everything that mattered. "Sarah, can I ask you a favor?" "Sure, honey." If anyone asks, I was here all afternoon. Drinking alone, feeling sorry for myself. Marty left around 2. She studied my face for a moment, then nodded. "You were here until closing. Sad sight, really. I almost cut you off twice." "Thanks." Outside, Marty grabbed my arm. "What are you planning?" "Nothing illegal, nothing violent, just a little home improvement project." "Ethan." "Trust me, Marty. I know what I'm doing." That evening, I let myself back into the house using my key. Claire was at her book club, or whatever she was calling her Tuesday night activities these days. The house was empty, quiet, waiting. I went to work. First, I reprogrammed the security system. New codes, new monitoring protocols, new alert settings. Then I adjusted the sprinkler system, the one I'd installed to protect my custom woodwork from fire damage. A few modifications to the sensors, a slight change in the pressure settings, nothing that would hurt anyone but plenty that would cause problems. Finally, I went to the basement and made some adjustments to the smart home system I'd installed last year. Climate controls, lighting, door locks, garage doors, all of it connected to my phone, all of it still registered under my accounts. By the time I finished, it was nearly midnight. I locked up and drove to the motel on Route 1, the kind of place that rented rooms by the week and didn't ask questions. Tomorrow, Ryan Foster was going to move into my house. I couldn't wait to welcome him to the neighborhood. I woke up Wednesday morning to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. All from Claire, all increasingly frantic. The first text, sent at 6:47 a.m. Something's wrong with the house. The last one, sent at 7:23 a.m. Call me now. I poured myself coffee from the motel's ancient machine and scrolled through the messages. Apparently, Ryan had arrived bright and early to move his belongings into his new house. The security system had other ideas. According to Claire's increasingly hysterical texts, the moment Ryan opened the front door, alarms started blaring. The sprinkler system activated, soaking his designer luggage and Italian leather furniture. The smart locks engaged, trapping him in the foyer while the security company called the police to report a break-in. I was still laughing when my phone rang. "Ethan, thank God." Claire's voice was tight with panic. "Something's wrong with the house systems. Ryan's trapped inside and everything's going crazy." "That's terrible," I said, not bothering to hide my amusement. Have you tried calling a repair service? This isn't funny. The police almost arrested him for breaking and entering. We need you to come fix this. I'm sorry, Claire, but I don't live there anymore. Remember? You gave me 48 hours to get out. Please, Ethan. Just this once. Tell you what, have Ryan call the security company himself. The account is still in my name, but I'm sure they'll transfer it to the new owner once he provides proof of purchase. Long pause. What do you mean, proof of purchase? The deed, Claire. The legal document that proves he owns the house. You know, the one you handled for him? Another pause, longer this time. There's a problem with the paperwork. What kind of problem? It's complicated. Can we meet somewhere? Talk about this privately? I smiled. The trap was working perfectly. Sure. Blue Lantern, 1 hour. Claire was already waiting when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with her hands wrapped around a coffee cup, like it was a life preserver. She looked terrible. No makeup, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, wearing yesterday's clothes. This wasn't the polished real estate agent who'd served me divorce papers 24 hours ago. Thank you for coming, she said as I sat down. You look like hell. I feel worse. She took a shaky sip of coffee. Ethan, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Honesty. That's rich coming from you. She flinched. I deserve that. You deserve a lot more than that. The deed to the house, she said quietly. The original deed from your father. Do you still have it? I leaned back in the booth, studying her face. Fear, guilt, desperation, all there in equal measure. Why do you ask? Because the deed I used for Ryan's purchase, there might be a problem with it. What kind of problem? The kind where it might not be legally binding. I nodded like I was just understanding. So when you forged my signature on a fake deed transfer, you didn't realize that the forgery might not hold up in court. Her face went white. How did you know about the forgery? Claire, I built this house. I paid for this house. I own this house. Did you really think I wouldn't notice when someone tried to steal it from me? It's not stealing. We're married. Community property. Community property gets divided in divorce court, not stolen by your boyfriend through fraudulent documents. I leaned forward. Did Ryan know you were forging the deed, or did you lie to him too? She couldn't meet my eyes. He thought it was legitimate. So you lied to both of us. Impressive. What do you want, Ethan? What do I want? I pretended to think about it. I want my wife to not cheat on me. I want my house to not be stolen. I want my 20-year marriage to not be flushed down the toilet for some flash developer with more money than brains. But we don't always get what we want, do we? Please, just tell me what you want to make this go away. Make what go away? Your adultery, the fraud, the fact that half the town is laughing at me behind my back? The house, Ethan. What do you want for the house? I stood up. The house isn't for sale, Claire. It never was. It's mine. It's staying mine. And if Ryan Foster wants to live somewhere, he can buy his own place. You can't do this. Watch me. I left her sitting there and walked outside. Mrs. DeWitt was across the street, not even pretending she wasn't eavesdropping. She gave me a thumbs up and a wink. By evening, the whole town would know that Claire Marsh had tried to steal her husband's house and failed. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Ryan. I typed back, no, we don't. This isn't over. You're right. It's not. That afternoon, I drove to the county courthouse and filed the paperwork to freeze all joint assets pending divorce proceedings. Bank accounts, credit cards, investment portfolios, everything Claire and I owned together was now locked down tight. I also filed a complaint with the State Real Estate Commission about Claire's irregular business practices and sent copies of the forged documents to her boss. Then I went to visit my lawyer. James Crawford had handled my business contracts for 10 years. He was old school, methodical, and absolutely ruthless when someone tried to screw over his clients. Fraud, forgery, and attempted theft, he said after reviewing my documents. She could go to prison. I don't want her in prison. I want her broke, embarrassed, and gone. What about Foster? What about him? He's not going to take this quietly. Men like him don't like being made to look foolish. Then he shouldn't have tried to steal my house. Crawford smiled. I like your style, Ethan. Let's destroy them. That evening, I drove past my house. Ryan's BMW was in the driveway, along with a locksmith's van and 2 repair trucks. Through the windows, I could see people working on the security system and cleaning up water damage from the sprinkler incident. I parked down the street and called the house phone. Ryan answered on the first ring. What do you want? Just checking on my house, making sure you're taking good care of it. Your house? We'll see about that. Yes, we will. How's the move-in going? I heard you had some technical difficulties. You sabotaged the security system. I programmed the security system. There's a difference. It's designed to keep intruders out, and it's working perfectly. You son of a... Careful, Ryan. That's my house you're standing in. Show some respect. I hung up and drove back to the motel, humming to myself. Tomorrow was going to be very interesting. Thursday morning brought rain and chaos in equal measure. I was eating breakfast at the motel when Marty called. Turn on Channel 8 News, he said. You're going to love this. I found the remote and flipped to the local morning show. There was my house on television, with reporters standing in my driveway talking about a domestic dispute that has rocked the quiet community of Millbrook Harbor. Property ownership dispute between local businessman Ethan Marsh and developer Ryan. Foster has escalated into what neighbors are calling a smart home war. Foster, who claims to have purchased the waterfront property from Marsh's estranged wife, has been unable to gain full access to the residence due to what he calls sabotage of the home's electronic systems. The camera panned to show Ryan standing on my front porch, looking haggard and furious. His expensive clothes were wrinkled, his hair was a mess, and he had the look of a man who hadn't slept in days. This is harassment, Ryan told the reporter. Ethan Marsh is using the house's security system to make my life hell. The locks change randomly, the alarms go off at all hours, and yesterday the garage door closed on my car. I grinned. The garage door thing was a nice touch. I'd programmed it to close whenever it detected Ryan's BMW in the driveway. The reporter turned to the camera. Marsh could not be reached for comment, but public records show the property deed remains in his name. Foster's attorney says they plan to file a lawsuit to resolve the ownership dispute. I turned off the TV and finished my coffee. Time for Phase 2. The Millbrook Harbor Arts Festival was this weekend, an annual event that brought together local artists, musicians, and half the population of the town. It was also where Claire had a booth promoting her real estate business, and where Ryan planned to announce his latest development project. Perfect. I spent Thursday afternoon at the festival setup, volunteering to help with the technical equipment. The organizers were grateful for the help. I'd donated the sound system and projection equipment for the main stage, and I was one of the few people who knew how to operate it. Thanks for doing this, Ethan, said Mary Peterson, the festival coordinator, especially with everything you're going through. Happy to help. Community events are important. Will Claire still be working her booth this weekend? As far as I know. The divorce isn't final yet. Mary looked uncomfortable. And Mr. Foster? I heard he's planning to make some kind of announcement. You'll have to ask him about that. That evening, I received an unexpected visitor at the motel. Claire knocked on my door at 9 o'clock, looking nervous and desperate. We need to talk, she said. I thought we covered everything yesterday. Please, Ethan. 5 minutes. I let her in, curious about what new angle she was working. She sat on the edge of the bed, hands clasped in her lap like a schoolgirl. "I want to apologize," she said, "for everything. The affair, the lying, trying to take the house. I was wrong. Yes, you were. I miss you. I miss us. Maybe we can work this out, go to counseling, start over." I stared at her. "Are you serious?" "I made a mistake. A huge mistake. But we had 20 years together, Ethan. That has to count for something." It counted for something. Past tense. She moved closer, put her hand on my arm. "I know you still love me. I can see it in your eyes. What you see is disappointment and pity. Please, just think about it. We could call off the divorce, work things out, be a family again. What about Ryan?" "Ryan was a mistake, a midlife crisis. You're my husband, Ethan. You're the man I want to grow old with. She was good. I had to give her that." The tears looked real. The remorse sounded genuine. And if I hadn't known better, I might have believed her. Instead, I pulled out my phone and stopped the recording app. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Documenting your attempt to manipulate me? This conversation where you admit the affair was wrong and Ryan was a mistake? This is going to be very useful in divorce court." Her face changed, the mask slipping away to reveal the cold calculation underneath. "You bastard. You tried to steal my house, Claire. You forged documents, committed fraud, and made me a laughingstock. Did you really think I was going to fall for the repentant wife act?" She stood up, smoothing down her skirt. "This isn't over. You keep saying that. But it is over. Has been since you handed me those divorce papers." After she left, I uploaded the recording to my laptop and made several backup copies. Tomorrow was going to be a very public day. Friday morning, the arts festival opened with the usual fanfare. Local politicians gave speeches, the high school band played patriotic songs, and vendors hawked everything from handmade jewelry to kettle corn. Claire was at her real estate booth, all smiles and professional charm, pretending nothing was wrong. Ryan had set up his own display near the main stage, architectural renderings and promotional materials for his latest project. A crowd had gathered around him as he explained his vision for luxury waterfront living in historic Millbrook Harbor. I waited until the crowd was at its largest, then activated the main stage projection system. Instead of the festival welcome video, the big screen displayed a series of text messages between Claire and Ryan. Messages about their affair, about stealing my house, about how stupid I was for not seeing it coming. Messages where Claire mocked her friends and neighbors, calling them small-town idiots and gossip-obsessed housewives. The crowd went silent, reading the messages with growing shock and anger. Claire looked up at the screen, her face going pale as she recognized her own words. "Technical difficulties," Ryan shouted, trying to regain control. "Someone's playing a prank." But the messages kept coming. Ryan's texts were even worse. Crude descriptions of his sexual encounters with Claire, dismissive comments about the local yokels he was planning to displace with his development, and detailed plans for tearing down that eyesore Marsh built to make room for condos. "Turn it off!" Claire screamed, but I was nowhere near the control booth. The final message was Ryan's response to Claire's suggestion that they frame me for domestic abuse to gain leverage in the divorce. Perfect. Small-town cops will believe anything. We'll have him arrested and take everything. The crowd erupted, angry voices shouting, people pointing at Claire and Ryan with disgust and fury. Mrs. DeWitt was taking pictures with her phone, probably already posting them to social media. Ryan tried to push through the crowd toward the control booth, but he didn't make it far. Tom Bradley, whose family had lived in Millbrook Harbor for 6 generations, stepped into his path. "You want to tear down the Marsh house?" Tom asked. "The one Ethan built for his family?" "That's taken out of context," Ryan said. "Which part? The part where you called us yokels or the part where you planned to frame a good man for domestic abuse?" Ryan tried to push past Tom, but more people blocked his way. The crowd was getting uglier, and I decided it was time to make my appearance. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, walking up to the stage microphone. "I apologize for the technical difficulties. Sometimes technology has a mind of its own." The crowd turned to me, and I saw a mixture of sympathy, anger, and respect in their faces. These were my neighbors, my customers, people who'd known me for 20 years. "I want you all to know that I'm handling my personal situation through proper legal channels. No one needs to take any action on my behalf. Justice will be served." Ryan finally broke through the crowd and charged toward the stage. "You son of a bitch! I'll sue you for everything." He was almost to the steps when he tripped over the sound system cables I'd strategically placed in his path. He went down hard, landing face first in the mud in front of the entire festival crowd. The crowd erupted in laughter and applause. Ryan struggled to his feet, covered in mud, his expensive clothes ruined, his dignity shattered. "This isn't over!" he screamed. "Yes," I said into the microphone. "It is." Saturday night, I was back at the Blue Lantern, celebrating my victory with half the town buying me drinks. The festival incident had made me a local hero, and Claire and Ryan had become the most hated couple in Millbrook Harbor. That's when Greg Morrison walked in. I knew Greg by reputation, Ryan's business partner and fixer, the guy who handled the dirty work when legitimate business practices weren't enough. He was smaller than Ryan, quieter, but supposedly twice as dangerous. "Ethan Marsh?" He slid into the booth across from me. "We need to talk." "I don't think we do. Ryan's my business partner. What happens to him affects me. And right now, he's radioactive thanks to your little stunt yesterday." "That's unfortunate." Greg leaned forward. "You embarrassed him in public, cost him money, reputation, respect. He wants payback. Let me guess. You're here to threaten me. I'm here to make you an offer. Walk away from this. Take your divorce settlement, move somewhere else, start over. We'll make it worth your while." "How much?" $200,000. Cash. Tax-free. I pretended to consider it. "That's a generous offer. What's the catch?" "No catch. You sign over the house deed, drop the fraud charges, and disappear. Everyone wins." "And if I don't?" Greg's smile was cold. "Bad things happen to people who cross Ryan Foster. Business deals fall through, permits get denied, insurance claims get rejected. You're a small businessman, Ethan. You can't afford to make enemies. Is that a threat?" "It's a reality check." I finished my beer and stood up. "Tell Ryan I said no." "And Greg? If anything happens to my business, my property, or me, I've got enough evidence to put both of you in prison for the next 10 years. "What evidence?" "The kind that proves Ryan knew about the forged deed. The kind that shows his business dealings aren't as clean as he pretends. The kind that connects him to some very interesting people in Boston." Greg's face went pale. "You're bluffing." "Am I? Want to find out?" I left him sitting there and walked outside. Marty was waiting by his van, having listened to the entire conversation through the wire I was wearing. "Think he bought it?" Marty asked. "He bought something. Question is, what's he going to do about it?" We didn't have to wait long to find out. Sunday morning, I woke up to find my workshop broken into and ransacked. Tools scattered, files dumped, equipment damaged. But whoever had done it was sloppy. They'd missed the hidden safe where I kept my real evidence, and they'd left fingerprints all over everything. I called the police, filed a report, and waited. By afternoon, Greg Morrison was in custody, caught on Mrs. DeWitt's security camera breaking into my workshop. Apparently Ryan's fixer wasn't as smart as he thought he was. With Greg in jail and facing burglary charges, Ryan was on his own. And he was desperate. Monday evening, he called me directly. "You win," he said. "I'll walk away from the house, end things with Claire, leave town. Just drop the charges against Greg." "Interesting offer. Where do you want to meet?" "Somewhere private. The old motel on Route 1, room 12. Come alone." I agreed, but of course I didn't come alone. Marty was parked across the street with a camera and a police scanner. If this went bad, I wanted witnesses. Ryan was waiting in the motel room, pacing like a caged animal. He looked terrible, unshaven, hollow-eyed, wearing the same clothes from 3 days ago. "You destroyed me," he said when I walked in. "My business, my reputation, everything. You destroyed yourself. I just provided the evidence. I offered you money. I offered to walk away. What more do you want?" "I want you to understand something, Ryan. This was never about money or property or even Claire. This was about respect. You came into my town, stole my house, seduced my wife, and treated me like some small-town idiot you could push around. I get it. I was wrong. I'm sorry." "No, you're not sorry. You're caught. There's a difference." Ryan's composure finally cracked. "You think you're so smart, don't you? You think you've won? I know I've won. Claire and I had a backup plan. We recorded you threatening her, stalking her, making her fear for her safety. We were going to have you arrested for domestic abuse, get a restraining order, take everything you own." I smiled. "We're going to? We still can. One phone call to the police and you're the bad guy. The obsessed ex-husband who couldn't let go. That's an interesting theory. There's just one problem with it." "What's that?" I pulled out my phone and played the recording of Claire's visit to my motel room, where she'd admitted the affair was wrong and begged me to take her back. Your star witness just confessed that she was lying, on tape, with a timestamp. Ryan stared at the phone, his face going through several different expressions before settling on defeat. "It's over," I said. "You lost. Accept it and move on." But Ryan Foster wasn't the type to accept defeat gracefully. As I turned to leave, he lunged at me, swinging wildly. I stepped aside and let his momentum carry him into the wall. He bounced off and came at me again, this time with a broken beer bottle from the nightstand. I caught his wrist and twisted, sending the bottle flying. Then I drove my knee into his stomach and shoved him backward onto the bed. "Stay down," I warned. "I don't want to hurt you, but I will if you make me." Ryan lay there gasping, all the fight gone out of him. "This isn't over." "Yeah, it is." I walked out of the motel room and got in my truck. Through the window, I could see Ryan sitting on the edge of the bed, head in his hands, finally understanding that he'd lost everything. Marty followed me back to town, and we stopped at the Blue Lantern for a victory drink. "So what now?" he asked. "Now I go home." "What about Claire? What about her? The divorce will be final in 60 days. She can start over somewhere else. And Foster? Foster's finished in this town. Word's already spreading about what he tried to do. No one will work with him, no one will sell to him, and no one will trust him. He'll be gone by the end of the week." Marty raised his beer. "To justice served. To justice served." But even as we toasted, I knew this wasn't quite finished. There was still one more move to make, one final piece of the puzzle to put in place. Claire was about to learn that crossing Ethan Marsh came with consequences she'd never imagined. The call came Tuesday morning at 6 a.m. Claire sobbing, hysterical, barely coherent. "Ethan, please, you have to help me. They fired me. They froze my accounts. I have nowhere to go. I was back in my house, having legally reclaimed it the day before. The locks were changed. The security system was back under my control, and Ryan Foster's belongings were sitting in garbage bags on the curb." "Slow down," I said. "What happened?" "The real estate commission suspended my license. My boss fired me. The bank froze all my accounts pending the fraud investigation. I can't even get into my safety deposit box. That's terrible. Where are you staying?" "The motel. The same one where you were. But I can't afford it much longer. Ethan, I know I hurt you, but I'm begging you. Please don't let them destroy me completely." I looked around my house, and felt a moment of satisfaction. Everything was back where it belonged. The custom furniture, the artwork, The photographs of the life Claire and I had built together. Everything except Claire herself. What do you want me to do? Call off the investigation. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. I'll sign whatever divorce papers you want, give you everything. Just please stop this. I can't stop a criminal investigation, Claire. That's out of my hands. You started it. You can end it. I reported a crime. The authorities are handling it from here. Please, Ethan. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But her apologies were 24 hours too late, because while Claire was begging for mercy, the final phase of my plan was already in motion. That afternoon, I drove to the Blue Lantern for what I'd decided would be my last visit as a divorced man. Tomorrow I was throwing a party, a celebration of freedom, justice, and new beginnings. The whole town was invited. Heard about Claire, Sarah said as she poured my usual beer. Word is she's broke, unemployed, and facing criminal charges. That's what I heard too. You don't sound very happy about it. Should I be? She tried to steal your house, Ethan. She cheated on you, lied to you, made you look like a fool. Some people would say she got what she deserved. Some people would be right. Sarah studied my face. But nothing. Justice is justice. Sometimes it's pretty, sometimes it's ugly, but it's always necessary. That evening, I was in my workshop when I heard a car pull up outside. Through the window, I saw Claire getting out of a beat-up Honda Civic, a far cry from the BMW she'd been driving a week ago. She knocked on my front door, and I let her in. She looked terrible, pale, thin, wearing clothes that hadn't been washed in days. The polished real estate agent was gone, replaced by a broken woman with nothing left to lose. Nice car, I said. New? It's a rental. They repossessed my BMW yesterday. I'm sorry to hear that. She looked around the house, taking in all the changes I'd made. It looks good, like it used to. It is like it used to. Before you decided to burn everything down. Ethan, I know you hate me. I know I destroyed everything we had, but I'm asking you, one last time, to show mercy. Mercy? I have nothing left. No job, no money, no friends. Ryan won't even take my calls. I'm completely alone. You made your choices, Claire. Now, you get to live with them. I was wrong. I was selfish and stupid and wrong. But 20 years has to count for something. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for a moment I saw the woman I'd married. Young, hopeful, full of dreams about the future we'd build together. That woman was gone, destroyed by greed and ambition and the belief that she deserved more than what we had. 20 years does count for something, I said. It counts as 20 years I'll never get back. She started crying then, deep sobs that shook her whole body. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know you are. You're sorry you got caught. Sorry you lost everything. Sorry you're facing the consequences of your actions. But you're not sorry for what you did. If you could go back and do it again, knowing you wouldn't get caught, you'd make the same choices. She couldn't deny it, because we both knew it was true. Get out, I said quietly. Get out of my house, get out of my town, and get out of my life. Ethan, get out. She left without another word, and I watched through the window as she drove away in her rental car. I never saw her again. Wednesday evening, the Blue Lantern was packed for my freedom party. Half the town showed up, along with clients, friends, and neighbors who'd supported me through the whole ordeal. Even Mrs. DeWitt was there, holding court at the bar and regaling anyone who'd listen with her eyewitness account of Ryan Foster's downfall. Speech! Someone called out, and soon the whole crowd was chanting for me to say something. I climbed onto a chair and raised my beer. The room went quiet. Friends, I said, 3 weeks ago, I thought my life was over. My wife had left me, my house was stolen, and my reputation was in ruins. I felt like the biggest fool in Millbrook Harbor. murmurs of sympathy from the crowd. But you know what I learned? Sometimes the worst thing that can happen to you turns out to be the best thing, because it shows you who you really are and what you're really capable of. Applause. Claire and Ryan thought they could destroy me because I was just a small-town carpenter. They thought I was weak, stupid, and helpless. They were wrong on all counts. More applause, louder this time. They tried to steal my house, but I got it back. They tried to ruin my reputation, but you all stood by me. They tried to break my spirit, but I'm stronger now than I've ever been. The crowd was on its feet now, cheering and clapping. So here's to new beginnings, to justice served, and to the best neighbors a man could ask for. The party went on until closing time. People told stories, shared drinks, and celebrated the victory of good over evil. It felt like the whole town had come together to support me, and for the first time in months, I felt truly happy. As the crowd began to thin out, Marty pulled me aside. "So, what's next?" he asked. "Back to building furniture?" "Among other things. I've got some ideas for expanding the business, maybe hiring some help." "What about dating? You're a free man now." I laughed. "I think I'll focus on myself for a while. Learn to be single again, figure out what I want from life." "Fair enough." "You've earned some peace and quiet." We were interrupted by a commotion outside. Through the window, I could see Claire and Ryan arguing in the parking lot. Their voices were raised, their gestures angry and desperate. "Think we should call the cops?" Marty asked. "No, let them finish destroying each other." As we watched, Claire slapped Ryan across the face and stormed off into the night. Ryan stood there for a moment, holding his cheek, then got in his car and drove away in the opposite direction. "And that," I said, "is the end of that story." I walked outside into the cool night air, breathing deeply and feeling lighter than I had in years. My house was mine, my business was thriving, and my enemies were defeated. Justice had been served, completely and thoroughly. The town square was empty except for a few late-night stragglers heading home from the bars. I stood there for a moment, looking up at the stars and thinking about the future. Tomorrow I would start rebuilding my life. New projects, new challenges, new possibilities. But tonight, I was content to savor the victory. I climbed into my truck and drove home to my house where I belonged. The security system welcomed me with a friendly beep, the lights came on automatically, and everything was exactly as it should be. Perfect.